What if one day you were walking through the forest and suddenly the world opened up in front of you? Farmland as far as the eye could see, trees, dragons, islands, castles. Welcome to my fantasy world. I hope you have a good time here. Let me introduce you to my building process. I'm starting out by using some plugins and mods for the game here. I'm using World Edit, Voxel Sniper, and GoPaint to help me out with building this terrain. Otherwise, it would take me a really long time. If you want a tutorial on how I'm doing any of these commands, I will link that in the corner now. Establishing these islands was obviously very, very important to me. I wanted them to be smooth, and I wanted them to look as though they were hovering above the exact area that they came out of. So I made holes in the ground that were the exact same size as them, and then put some beautiful wispy clouds around them. I like the look that this gives, but it definitely needs some context. Adding farmland to the area below, although it is a background, makes the build make a lot more sense and gives it a lot more story and lore. Then we can move on to the planning phase of the build. This is arguably a very, very important phase, and this is where I can establish all of my proper proportions before I start detailing and making mistakes. Speaking of detailing and making mistakes, let's go do it. Starting off on detailing this larger structure, because honestly, this one's probably the easiest, using a lot of trial and error to figure out what colors and details I want to use. I end up going with this gradient roof with the prismarine, which is my absolute favorite to use. I mean, it's just so fun. I actually go around the base with some bricks as well, which I think adds a really fun little pop of color down to the base that I don't normally do. Once these details are kind of established, we get into a groove of building and kind of just go all the way around the castle with these very similar details that I had just established. Makes the building process a little bit easier, but I'm not gonna lie, for this particular castle, I was struggling. It was hard. I don't even know why. It's not like the technique that I was using here was any more difficult than my usual builds. I just was kind of not getting it. And you'll see here I actually left in a clip of me experimenting with different build styles for these roofs, and actually I don't like them. What happens when I build something like this and I don't end up liking it, I'd actually just make a backup of the world and then go again, but delete the part that I just did and try it again. This sort of trial and error helps me establish what I actually want, and it's really important. I think for a lot of builders, once you build something, you kind of feel like you have to commit to it and force it to work, but sometimes that's not true. Sometimes taking a different approach to it or taking the night off and coming back with fresh eyes in the morning is all that you need to fix up that build. And this was definitely the case with this castle. Ended up being able to decorate this side a lot better, even throwing in a little diagonal, which is not something that I can always make work in a build, but I'm really glad I did. This tower, again, prime example. I was trying to make a circular one work, but diagonal was totally the answer, and it works so much better in this area. I was a lot happier with my build once I went back and redid these areas, so definitely worth my time. We are also going to be doing this in the front of the castle, in this gate area. I didn't like the proportions that I had done here. I don't think they worked, and I think there was too many of those blue roofs. This flatter roof with the castle crenulations and the flag worked a lot better to balance that, as well as the shed in front, which is a slightly different color, which really balances out all of that gray. Adding in these details is so important, and I'm glad that I took the time to do it. Now that I'm a little bit happier with the castle, we can move over to this other island over here. I wanted this to be kind of a magical place. Somebody lives here. Somebody owns this tower and this house, and it's this very magical connection. I wanted to surround it in trees and have flowers all around. Have it be a very medieval inspired, but definitely fantasy house. I also decided to add some crumbling bridges to almost make it look like this floating island with the house was at one time connected to the castle, but that has since crumbled as the island shifted. I like this, and I think it gives a little bit of story to these islands. Of course, we do have this final island over here to decorate. For this one, I just go with some flowers, which I think matches with the farms below really, really well to kind of just fill in the area. Then my favorite part, dragons. or in this case, wyverns. Building organics on this small scale is something that is very, very challenging. You just simply don't have many blocks to work with and move around. I went with 2 different colors that both gave me stairs and slabs, which was important in getting the proportions correct because I definitely took full advantage of that. These dragons were a struggle, okay? I know that she's awkward, but she's doing her best, okay? Don't make fun of her. Now we're going to quickly transfer this body right over to the other side, kind of rotate it around. We're going to use this body to create a whole new dragon. Instead of me having to put in a lot of work and do that whole body and head and stuff all again, I want them to look similar, like they're the same species of dragon. So I just take this original body and I change the wing position to make it look like it is flapping its wings downwards instead of upwards. Changing the tail position as well to make more sense with this body position. And I really like the way that this one came out. Of course, that wasn't enough of a challenge for me yet. I also wanted to do one that was soaring upwards on a little bit more of a diagonal. This one was definitely the most challenging in terms of position. It's a little more dynamic than the other 2, but I think overall the shaping actually worked out better than the other ones, and this one might be my favorite. I'm not sure. Let me know what your favorite is down in the comments. Now that the dragons are in place, I can focus my attention back to this castle where it just needs a few more finishing details to fix up all of those proportions. Once this is done, I think it's safe to call this build complete. Let's go check it out, shall we? Hope you all enjoyed that little time lapse and cinematic. I worked super hard on that, and now I want to take a quick second and take you through this build in the first person view rather than with replay mod. Let's start down here at the farms. This is definitely where the scale of the entire project really comes into play. I mean, imagine stumbling upon this in a world. You come out through a forest somewhere and it opens up and the sky has islands that are floating. It really gives you a good concept for the scale when you're down here, and I really love this view. This farmland down here was just meant to be filler, so there's not a ton of detail put into it. Mostly just kind of spammed bushes and random fields, but still, I mean, it's really something. Definitely the main draw for me in this build is these dragons, and they were such a tricky challenge. I can't believe I managed to get this one's head actually tilting that way. It was really hard. The wing joints are difficult to make them look like they have air in under them. The legs are the hardest part. There's something about a dragon butt that I just can't build it. This one I think worked out the best. It's kind of got little like nubby legs. There's almost nothing there. I like that. I think that works really well as opposed to this leg, which kind of draws a lot of attention. I love this dragon. I think the wing shape and color is fantastic, but it's awkward. And I need to work on it a little more to get it less awkward, but she's doing her best. We're not going to judge her. This dragon over here is probably my personal favorite. It's got the same problem as the other one over there with the legs. However, with this particular dragon, the legs are a lot more hidden because of the wing shape swooping down. I love the way that these wings work. I think it really does look like a proper like wyvern's arm slash wing, the way that these are bent backwards. I did use the flip command on these, so they are symmetric, which is not ideal for organics, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of lazy. So it worked out in the end, and it does look good, even though it's symmetrical, in my opinion. Anyways, there is tons of room in this castle for activities. I love the way that this came together and just flows. On the edge of each of these two islands here, I actually have placed a barrel with some wings and some fireworks, which means we can easily fly from one island to the other. I was going to do little magical kind of teleporter pads or portals between them, but I mean, elytra are really easily built into the game, and it works. I mean, it's perfect. And look at the view. Ah, it makes me so happy. I like to imagine that this house belongs to someone who is older and wiser and who has lived here for a very long time, sort of collecting up random things, performing magic. Maybe they've been practicing as a witch. I don't know, but something peculiar is going on up here. And look. Oh my gosh. They've got the best view ever. I would love to live in this house. I think if I lived here, I would surround myself with nature, just practice my magic, speak to the fairies, wander around the skies with the dragons, make friends with all of the creatures. It just seems like such a peaceful area, and I hope those dragons agree that we can be peaceful. Over here, I've placed a little picnic area for myself because, to be honest, who wouldn't want to sit under a tree with dragons flying around in a castle right off in the distance? This is my dream, I think. Anyways, everyone, I think that is going to be about it from me. I've had so much fun creating this build and exploring it with all of you. This has been one of the most fun videos to make that I have done in such a long time. Thank you so much for supporting me on this channel. I very, very, very much appreciate it. I will put this build up for download on my Patreon, so that should be available shortly after this video goes live. Thank you once again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Goodbye, everyone!